I've got a project here to make a bracelet that depicts the karate belt knot, and so I'm going to do it out of sterling silver. I've got some pieces here that I've put together. I've got my base silver for the actual cuff portion, and then I'm going to overlay it with a thinner portion to create the belt, and then I've got a couple pieces here that I've bent and I'm sort of intertwining to create the knot, and it should all come together pretty well. Maybe more like this one here. I'll put some stitch kind of patterning on the belt as is needed, and it's kind of inspired by this. So we'll see how this comes out. I'm going to slide this together, and let's see how we get that to work. Voila! A beautiful karate knot. I'm going to solder it together, and then I'm going to smash it and grind it and make it look beautiful and attach it to the bracelet. And I'm going to solder this together. I've got a knot made, and then the belt kind of sliding through that, and then I'm going to overlay the whole thing onto the, well, I'm going to flatten it and then put it onto the cuff portion. So right now I'm just getting it all assembled so I can smash it. This torch actually is more appropriate to this operation so that I can actually get the silver heated up more uniformly. Sometimes a mini torch isn't your best option for a silver operation because you need too much dispersed heat. So back and forth, watching the color, watching the flux, and watching those two big balls of silver which I want to go bloop, and they're starting to bloop now. I don't want anything else to bloop. I don't want any of my other seams to bloop, so I'm watching that. Do you see them going? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think that's adequate. Okay, I have my knot, and right now it's a good knot, but it's two-dimensional and it's sticking up and stuff. So I'm going to smash it a little bit, tap it down, so that I can get it so that it goes onto this and isn't uncomfortable to wear. And I'll be curving these tails up and attaching them to the bracelet so they don't get caught on stuff either. But first, let's see how we're going to tap this down. Let's start with the back using a planishing hammer. I'm going to use the slightly domed side. Okay, that's good. See what it looks like on the front. Oh, that still looks good. Good. Okay. A little more. My goal is to get all this stuff compressed together so I can solder it together so it looks like a nice cohesive unit. Let's tap it down a little more. The metal's pretty elastic stuff, so it should do what I want it to do. I can go in with a flexible shaft and trim it up a little bit. Yeah, I like the compactness of that. What do you think? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's going to look, that's going to be better. So I'm going to go in, I think, and flow some more solder to get the design to be a more solid unit, so it can't like break and pull apart or something.
Right.
So maybe a little more tapping. But everywhere the silver is touching, the solder will flow pretty well, so. Oh yeah, I like that a lot. Maybe a little more. Maybe smash it really flat. Okay, still more. That gives us a better surface to solder it onto. Yeah, I like that better. can see where the shiny parts are, is where it's gotten flattened. Let's make sure we look good on the front. Yeah. So when I refinish the front, all that shiny part will go away.
Mm-hmm.
I think I like the looks of how that's going to go on here. So if I look here, I like how that fits against this. I can get it tacked on and then, you know, hammer it a little more to get a good meet with that cuff portion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So definitely I'll use the big torch to solder this. But first I'm going to go in with my flex shaft and trim it up a little bit. Make it right. Okay. So I'm going to use a cutting disc and various rubber wheels and things to redefine where it got hammered a little. So this will sharpen up the edges that got a little bit distorted. Yeah, like that. And then over here, we'll make the curves look like they're intended. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Bent one side of the tie up, and it's going to solder to the belt portion. So I'll do that before I solder it onto the cuff, and then I'll get this solder tacked on there, and then I'll tack up, bend and tack the other side. Then get it pre-finished and get it onto the cuff portion. I've got this bent up the right way, but it's really chewed up now because I was pretty aggressive with how I was bending it. So I'm going to go in and really tidy this up before I solder it onto the main cuff. Now it's time to try to solder this together. I've got it, my karate belt overlay wired with some stainless wire onto the cuff portion and kind of lined up. I'll probably have to solder it more than one time just to get everything to do its thing. I've got some solder laying on this top edge there. Now I'm going to use a pretty bushy flame. One more gas here. This is a big piece. It's got to heat up kind of all at the same time. So let's see what we can do. It would be good to heat this from the bottom, but I don't have a screen, so I'm going to heat it from the top and hope for the best. Keep the flame moving back and forth so you don't overheat one spot. You can go bigger. I'm watching it's got flux on it, and it's got boric acid and alcohol, and I'm watching to see the changes that happen to those. You want the boric acid, the flux to get glassy. That means you're getting closer to your solder melting temperature. I don't worry about the wires getting hot. They're little, they heat up fast and they cool down fast. Okay, some of the solder is going. I'm using medium solder. Ooh, they're good. Nice. Did you see that go? Are you close in?
Yeah.
Okay, get closer. I want you to see these solders go. Okay, because the solder went on that side real nice. You can get this to just, those pieces of solder will just sort of flow in with heat and gravity right into the, there they go.
Got it. That looks great.
Goes. Okay. I'll just run it all the way along and draw that solder with my heat. We'll kind of go there. There's a piece down there. Okay, got it. Now, that looks really good. I'm going to let it cool. Then we'll pickle it. And then I'm going to go along with a mallet or a hammer or pliers or something and tap it and make sure there's no gaps, and I'll go reflow the solder one more time without the wire. So I wanted to show that there's this gap here. The metal of the cuff isn't touching the metal of the knot and the belt area. So I'll take all the wire off, and after I cool it and pickle it, I'll hammer or use pliers or something to get this gap closed. There may be a few other gaps, like there's one right here. I don't want those gaps. I want solder to flow uniformly or mostly through all of this. So I'll just get those closed, and then I'll re-solder it. I probably don't need to add any more solder. What's there should just flow once it's reheated. I finished soldering. I feel confident that the design is firmly attached to the base cuff material. And so now I need to just do some detail work before I bend it, because I want to get it all really nicely finished before I bend it into the right shape. So I'm going to just use some sandpaper and maybe some rubber wheels and things, and just to get the residue and solder and bits and pieces off and unify the look. I'm also going to check and see if there's another bit of detail we can add to this, because I think in real life there's stitching on these belts, and they're not just a knot pattern. There's actually going to be some sort of stitch pattern, and if there is, I'll sort of imply that on this, and when I oxidize the whole thing, that'll stand out and be a nice detail. So I've been working on this side, and there's still this side to go. As you can see, we're getting close. So I think I'm ready to bend this into the proper cuff shape, and you can use things like a bracelet mandrel, which is this oval tapered piece, and that's fine. But this is sterling and it's pretty soft. I think I'm going to go for it by hand and with some pliers. A combination of things is so often what gets used. I want to make sure I have some leather here. Yeah, so that'll work. Well, I'm going to just bend it by hand at first, trying to work from both sides so that you get some symmetry to your curve. It doesn't all go in one place. Now the center has the thickness of metal bonded to it, soldered to it, so it's going to be a little stiffer. That's when we're going to very careful. Don't want to overbend any one place. Since it has a laminated quality, 2 layers soldered, it's a little stiffer than if it were just a single layer, of course. Okay. I'm pretty much just eyeballing. Of course, I can check my work on this beautiful mandrel. I've got a long ways to go. The thing about cuff bracelets is people like to put them on and then clamp them. And that is the death knell for a cuff bracelet. The metal usually can't tolerate very much of that before it fatigues and breaks. Right in the center usually. So that's not a good practice. Refrain from doing it. Now, we'll use these pliers, which have a notch and a bending area. So we're going to protect our... But this will help bend the stiffer area more easily. They will make tool marks, so be careful. That's why we're using leather, of course. they'll make a little kink in your arc if you're not careful, so you want to use those judiciously. Okay. Okay, we're getting better, huh? Another way you could do this, I suppose, since there's never any one way to do anything, you could take this mandrel, you could do that. That can help get things going in the right direction. And that started a nice curve. Let's see. Go back to where this will all get edited, Lance.
Trying to get good angles for you.
Why, thank you. There's a not regular curve. We'll straighten it out later with on the mandrel probably. Also, everybody's wrist is really different. You can have a flatter or a rounder wrist. I don't exactly know the recipient, so we may be doing adjusting anyway later. On this side. Got a spot over here that's not a good curve. Too bad. You can see some changes that need to be made. Because I have to take the ends off and make it so it won't be a torture device. A little bit flat. Maybe we need a mallet now. We have a mallet. Here's one. And I think I'm just gonna
just hit it with a hammer.
So you can see it's a little bit flat up there, which isn't necessarily a problem. I think I want to get a little bit of.
I have to pause for a moment.
Hi, Lynette. Oh, nope.
Hello.
Lynette will wait. Okay.
Lynette will wait.
Hang on, Lynette. We're
Okay.
videotaping. So we're just gonna coax it into a slightly more gentle curve, and then both sides always, because you could get a little taper. This is a good way to refine your curve. Also to get a little more tension in it by hardening it a little bit against the metal, the steel.
Well, looks like we got the Hollywood one over there. Okay.
Okay, I like that better. I'm going to refine the opening and the ends, and then there you go. And then we'll put a finish on it too. Do some more stuff, but we're getting close. Got some oxidation on here, some striations to sort of emulate the stitch pattern. Mostly just a directional sort of pattern, because the stitch pattern would be too hard to really put on precisely. So I made more of a directional pattern for it. I'm going to take off most of the oxidation on the surface of the belt itself, and then it's going to stand out from the rest of the bracelet.